it was kind of an insane time because people still need me to make their records. I'd be working on music and then I'd have a moment where I'd be like, what the fuck am I doing? What the fuck am I going to do? Just like, wow, who even fucking cares about this record? Like, I can have a studio.
What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Love Music More. Really excited for you to hear this conversation with my guest, Kyle Pulley. Kyle's a music producer, audio engineer, and bassist based in Philadelphia. We had a great conversation about being like 2 hours away from the Music Hub, me in San Diego, him in Philadelphia with New York, and also just kind of everything that goes into riding the wave of being a musician. Really interesting life from a 7,000 square foot warehouse in his youth to building a studio, getting kicked out of the studio, building another studio, developing these great relationships with community around him and business partners, and then also his strategies for mixing and really great tips for younger bands or bands that are trying to figure out how to get into recording. This is a great episode for you to check out. Before we get into that, I'd like to introduce our title sponsor, DistroKid. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy. With unlimited uploads, and artists get to keep 100% of royalties and earnings. And I use it because that's true. I get to keep 100%. You can also get in on this deal for 30% off. Throwing a lot of percentages out there. But 30% off with our special code at distrokid.com/VIP/lovemusicmore and get started today. 1 million plus artists rely upon DistroKid to get their music onto Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all of the major streaming services. One of the reasons why I love it is I'm able to do all of this on an app. I can upload music even on the app if I want to. I can cash out to my bank account all of that 100% royalties that I'm able to maintain on there. So definitely check that out at distrokid.com/VIP/lovemusicmore and enjoy this episode with Kyle. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Love Music More. I am Scoobert Dubert, and I am joined with Kyle Pulley. Kyle, welcome to the show.
What's up, Scoobert? Glad to be here.
Dude, we were just having a great conversation, so we got to just jump right back into it.
Let's fucking
tell me the story about your feature-length debut with a song.
Yeah. So, a little backstory of it was I got a song in a movie, which was really sick. I recorded it with my friend Francis, who sings in this band Hop Along, and we were working on some music together. And then Alex G is buddies with Francis and was like, hey, I'm doing a soundtrack for a movie. Do you want to, contribute a song? So Francis chatted with the director. Turns out the director was like a fan of this old song that Francis put out when they were like 18. And so they hit it off. And so we got to do this song and have it in the movie. And we finished it like right in between me moving out of my old studio because we got kicked out of it. Maybe a story for later, but the building got sold. And so then I moved into this new studio. And like the first thing I had to do was fucking make this song with Francis. And then it always takes longer than you think. So I was like coming in mornings and like finishing it while I had this band from Chicago. And so finally, like, you probably have had this experience with movies, like there's just so many freaking moving parts that your song is like the last thing they're worried about. Totally. Like you turn it in and then you're just like, is this even happening? Am I getting punked? Like I haven't been paid? Like what the fuck is happening? And so every so often something would come through and be like, it is real. It is happening. No one's playing a joke on you. And so like a year or two later, it actually, it was in this movie called I Saw the TV Glow. And it was in like most theaters, which was fucking sick. And so I got to go see it in a movie theater in Center City, Philadelphia with my buddies, with Francis and my wife and some friends. The song is first song in the credits. So the credits done and then the song plays. And it was just this like fucking awesome feeling to hear that song that I like just drove myself crazy and stressed out, just like blasting over the speakers in this movie theater. It was really cool. And then there was just like the reality check. There was literally this dude behind me. I saw him walk in with like a huge pounder of beer, and he was just like literally snoring through like the end of the movie, through my song, and I was like, okay, well, like, it's just background noise to some people. Bunch of people were talking and just like blah blah blah. What'd you think? Like, I don't know. I think it was just like one of those goofy things where I was like so excited. I like told the person next to me like I wrote this song, and she was just like, oh, the one with like Phoebe Bridgers in it, or like the one in the movie. I was like, no, not that one. This one. So, but it was cool to me, and you don't make music you make it for other people, but ultimately you have to make it for yourself. So I had fun. It was nice for me to listen to it. I'm sure some other people enjoyed it too. So, and the movie was cool.
I love that. I totally resonate because I've had the same experience only one time. I flew specifically to Japan so I could go see the movie in theaters.
That is sick.
It was sick.
That's so sick. And how long did you spend in Japan?
That time I spent 27 days. I was there for
a
while.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. My wife was like, bro, where are you?
You didn't take your wife with you?
No, I wish.
Damn. Yeah. My I've only done a layover in Japan.
Cool.
Seems really cool. My wife's family's from Taiwan, so I've spent a little bit of time there.
Seems awesome.
Taiwan feels like, if so Philadelphia has this like inferiority complex. I don't know if you follow football at all, but like,
yes,
like the way the Eagles feel.
Former Chargers fan, San Diego.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So like the way Eagles fans feels how like, it's kind of like permeated through Philadelphia. Like everybody is just, there's like this inferiority complex. So, everybody in Philadelphia, if you ask someone about Philadelphia, it's like blah, 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 Philly, blah, 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 Philly, blah, 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 New York, but blah, 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 Philly. It's like we're always comparing, so I feel like Taiwan is if Tokyo is New York, Taipei is Philly.
Cool.
It's like a similar vibe, but like Taipei is just like a little more fucked up. It's like some reason, like it's a little dirtier. I don't know why. I think it's because they just get a lot of rain and weather and stuff. Like, they make their buildings out of like these tile blocks, and then they just like, they're just covered in like, their buildings kind of look like the interior of like a frat house shower. Like there's just like all this like mildew kind of like on the buildings. You're like, I see you sweeping the street. Like just power wash this building, bro. But Taiwan's sick. I don't know. I'm going to go on a lot of tangents, so just like reel me in.
It's perfect. No, it actually bridges to something I really wanted to talk about because Philly, obviously I've had so many people, probably 90% LA. They got to go to LA. If I didn't go to LA, I wouldn't have a career. What's it like being in Philly, having a successful career? How did you build it? How did you do it? What advice would you have to people that maybe aren't in or LA or New York to be able to like build a network and get work?
When I was growing up in South Jersey, I loved like punk and hardcore, and to me, like Philly was like the center of the universe when I was 16, 17, because like, the bands that I loved, like Paint It Black or Kid Dynamite or just like a bunch, or Horror Show, or like all these punk bands that like I fucking loved, they were in Philly. That's where cool shows are happening. So it just like drew me there, and I just always felt like Philly's a place where like, enough people have cared to stick around to like build something, and so my gripe now that I'm older, now that I've been here for, however many years, it would be nice if there was like a little more industry. Like it would be nice if I like went to a coffee shop and like, what do you know? I just like ran into some guy who does A&R or some guy who manages this band or that band.
Yeah.
That being said, there is like a tremendous amount of community in Philly. You would go to just like some random show at like the 200 Cap Club, and there's a bunch of people there, and some of those people are just like playing in little bands, and some, or bands that are coming up, some people are just there, and then you'll also have like people who are playing in like the heavy hitting bands of like a national scene, but like the Philly scene for sure. And it's just like not this weird like competitive thing. It's like, like the singer of the Menzingers wants to come out and see his friend's band play for like 50 people, and there's not like this weird competitive thing. that is what I have always appreciated about Philly. In fact, I just had an artist come from LA to work here in the beginning of February, and it's like it's this artist J-Som, it's Melina, and then her friend Mal, who plays guitar in the band, and they both came from LA. And I'm like introducing them to like the assistants and like interns and different people, and they're like, wow, everyone here is so nice. I'm like, what do you mean? Of course they're nice. Like, we're all here in a studio. If they were a dick, they wouldn't be here. But they're like, you'd be surprised. But so yeah, I mean, I think in regards to finding work and stuff like that, I think tape op was a very like important thing for me coming up. I read a lot of that, and Larry Crane would always talk about like, it's really important to build a community around what you're doing in the arts, and now that people, now with algorithmic discovery and blah 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 and all this stuff, I mean, artists are always talking about like trying to build their, a community of fans as well. So I started, I went to Drexel just because I didn't know what the fuck else to do. They had like a music program. I did that. I ran into a few friends of mine. That's where I met my business partner, Joe, who played in this band, Algernon Cadwallader. And at first, in class, I was just like, who the fuck is this guy? He's got some dumbass lip ring. And at the time I had this I had long hair, but then I had cut it into a mullet. Cool. I thought it looked kind of cool. I thought it kind of looked like Redhead Sting, but like nobody, I don't know, but I don't know if that's cool either. But we hit it off because we were at the same like basement show, and it was like, oh, you're actually cool and you actually care about music. We're really inspired by Wilco. They had the Loft in Chicago. So we're like, that's what we want. We want a huge ass fucking warehouse just like loaded with gear. And so from like age maybe 23 or 24 to like age 30, I lived in this 7,000 square foot warehouse with like 10 other people. We had one room that was like a jam room that we were like collecting gear. And, we always let bands like stay over. Like I remember one time there was this like 15-piece like ska band or something that played somewhere, and a friend of ours was like booking the venue, and they're like, hey, this band really needs a place to stay. Where can a 15-piece ska band stay at short notice? And so it's just like, yeah, sure. Like,
come over.
Yeah, I mean, we would literally like, there would be like a show around the corner sometimes, and we would literally just be like, everybody who's here can come over our house. Because it was just like that big, sometimes you would like go to sleep and you would wake up at 2 a.m. to use the bathroom, and then you'd have to like get in line to the bathroom. So it was a wacky place, and it, attracted a lot of weirdos, a lot of bands. And so I met just like a ton of like-minded people, and just Joe had been doing it for a little while longer than me when we both moved in. But, Joe's like a couple years older than me and just has had a little more experience. So he kind of like spearheaded the acquisition of gear. He was working at a pharmaceutical company doing AV for and making like a decent salary, but also living like a total bum like me, like paying like $300 in rent. So he was just like constantly on Craigslist, just like picking up used gear. So
smart. So smart.
Yeah, so, I mean, we just collected a bunch of gear and recorded our friends and recorded our own bands and just, like, developed and just, built it up from there is the short answer. And so I think it's interesting because I feel like when I was, like, I just turned 40, so I'm a little older now. But when I was, like, 17, 18, I feel like there was, like, fucking punk shows that happened in random ass towns in New Jersey, and there was music that there was like a local scene, like people would scrape out like a musical community kind of like anywhere. And I wonder, it'd be interesting, somebody should do some research about it or something, but I wonder with the advent of social media, there's just this increased FOMO where you feel like you have to go to these places in order to do stuff. Like, all these people, tons of people move from other places to Philly because of the music scene. And it's like, well, yeah, but I mean, Richmond, Baltimore, I don't know, you name it. Like, it could have that too if more people just stayed. And I mean, they do have music scenes too. But I mean, I'm just saying a lot of people move from this city. So
I know what you mean too, of just also like the ways that scenes evolve and kind of like the vibe of live music in the United States right now is super different than a lot of other countries too. I think just in part because social media, in part because like it's hard to live, like rent is super expensive, all of those things, and having creative spaces like a 7,000-foot warehouse where everybody can crash, that unlocks all of this incredible potential, because now you're not like worried about all of that overhead, and those that do have the day jobs are subsidizing the gear addiction.
Yeah, exactly. Just made stuff and kind of just kept doing it. So,
are you still working with Joe as a business partner today?
Yes, I am.
Cool.
Yep.
How has that relationship evolved? I'm assuming that's spanned over a decade now.
I mean, we've been friends for almost 2 decades. We've been best buds for like 18 years, and we've done the studio for like 15. And now we have a third partner too. We have someone named Mark Water, who's an excellent producer engineer, who is a co-owner of the studio. You know, we're all creative people, and we all want to do things the way we want to do them. So I think in doing any sort of artistic collaboration, you need to just understand like what the rules are, what the boundaries are. And so for us, it was always like, you do the records you want, I'll do my records the way I want. We both did separate records, but like the space itself, like the studio and the business and the brand and everything, that was like the thing we collaborated on. And so it's much easier to be like, yeah, you do records however the hell you want, you work with whoever you want, like whatever, but like we're gonna come together and like agree on what is the best thing to do with regards to the studio. And I'll give him a lot of credit and me a lot of credit. I mean, I'm sure you know from playing in bands, like it's best when people know like what their strengths are.
Yes.
And then just like let someone, like my strength was always like more of the organizational stuff.
Okay.
With regards to like organizing interns or like doing social media or just like some of the business stuff. And then Joe is just like a total gearhead. And like we're all gearheads, but like he just loves to like peruse Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever just for fun. He's always like picking up deals. So he does a ton of research. I don't care to do research. Chances are, if he says it's good, I'm going to agree.
Yeah.
I kind of will make it work with like whatever's in front of me. And I just like, I don't know. Like to me, it's like not worth reading all about this fucking guitar, this microphone I don't have, because I don't have it. So I'm just going to use the thing that's right in front of me. So Joe's done an excellent job in like curating the gear that we have. And I think I've done a good job in just, making sure it all works and is organized. So,
well, I feel like that's probably part of the secret to the longevity and the success. When you kind of know what you're doing and know how you relate to each other, I feel like that cleans it up, especially when you maybe get into some sort of stressful situation, like when you had the studio sold out from under you and you had to move spaces. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. That sounds chaotic.
I assume maybe your studio is in the same place that you live or whatever.
Yep.
So, but imagine your studio's not, right? So imagine it's a different place and you go there all the time. And you just weathered a global pandemic. And you're like, damn, glad that's behind us. That was crazy. And it was one of those rare times where like there wasn't anything going on in the studio and both Joe and I were like there at the same time. I think I was mixing something and then he was there to pick something up. And so we see these guys. The studio was in this like big old factory. The thing about the East Coast, Philadelphia in particular, everything is old as fuck. And so is in this old like 5-story brick old factory building, 120 something years old. So it was full of like different artist studios. So it was, you'd see people walking around with like a crazy mustache or splattered in paint or just like, there was a fashion designer, fashion photography. So there'd be like very like attractive people with like cool clothes, just walking around. So then we see these guys in like tucked in polo shirts and fucking khakis and clipboards. And we're just like, who are you guys? Like, you're clearly not here for it. And they're like, we're architects. And we're like, that's bad. Yeah. And so we called our landlord and he was like, that's a whole other story. He was like such a piece of work, but so he was like, I'm trying to sell it, but who knows what's going to happen. It was like, so, and then 6 months later we were out of there. So
Yeah.
it was kind of an insane time because people still need me to make their records. I'd be working on music and then I'd have a moment where I'd be like, what the fuck am I doing? What the fuck am I going to do? Just like, wow, who even fucking cares about this record? Like, I'm not going to have a studio. And so I would just have these freak out moments. But Joe had this, like, every so often, Joe has these fucking moments of genius. And he's like, yo, Dr. Dog, who's like a pretty established band from Philadelphia. They've been around, or
Yes.
I don't know if you're familiar, but they've been around for a while. And he's like, they have a studio that they've had for a while. And they just played their like kind of farewell tour. Like, I think they're just not as active as they used to be. And I was like, damn, that is fucking smart. And so we're old friends with the drummer, Eric. Didn't know the other guys as well. But funny enough, I did do one of my very first records I ever was an intern or like hung out, or my very first like actual album credit was like a Dr. Dog
No way.
credit from like 15 years ago, which is another story. I interned for this guy, Bill Moriarty, for a while. He did eventually fire me, but I did have, I did get a credit on their record, Fate. So they kind of knew about me, and Hop Along had toured with Dr. Dog like a few times. So Joe was like, had spent some time on the road with them. So yeah, we connected and they were just like, yeah, this seems like it makes a lot of sense. We have this studio with like no gear because a few of the people had moved away and brought a lot of their gear with them. And we're like, yeah, we have we have all this gear and no studio. So it's
Peanut butter jelly. Yep.
Yeah, it's been great. And I mean, Joe and I have always been huge fans of Dr. Dog, so it's just cool to like get to be in this space and get to hang out with them.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like when I was a kid and working on that record, I was like, holy shit, these guys are like fucking rock stars. And now that it's like, I don't know, 18 years later or whatever, I'm like, these guys are just older versions of my dumbass friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's and in a lot of ways, it's like, I feel like it's come full circle to the being in the like 7,000 square foot warehouse. You know what I mean? It's like, no one's living here, but like a lot of the rules apply of how you get along in a creative space and, give people latitude and ask for favors and push and pull and just like make sure everybody's getting the most out of the space that they can, respecting people's autonomy. And so I feel like that experience of like living there helped me know how to like negotiate like the politics of moving into this place, like this creative space that these guys have been in for 10 years or 12 years or whatever, and have it feel like our space, but also like let them still feel like they're very much a part of it. And so it's been awesome, and it's been great to make new friends, and I got to work on their latest record, which was really sick because of that. So those 6 months, it was terrible. It's just having no idea like what was going to happen. And then I'll tell you what, man, moving is the worst, but moving a recording studio is way worse. And like, we have a upright piano, and that wasn't even the worst thing to move. We had this like 36 channel Neotech console. It had originally been like custom ordered by Jackson Brown.
Wow.
So, and somehow just like through the years, like came to us. But this thing was like so big. It took like 5 or 6 people to like barely move it. And I feel like it almost killed us, but we did it, and we're here. And so now we're looking, now I feel like I'm traumatized from that, from just
Naturally.
like fucking nerds coming in telling me to get out. Ever since then, we've been saving money, and we've been trying to find a building that we can buy so that nobody kicks us out, and then we can just focus on making records. And that's been a whole thing. It's stressful, but I don't know. It's just like, I mean, it's just like anything else. You're just like, how the hell am I gonna get a song in Japan, or how the hell am I gonna book a tour, or how the hell am I gonna, you just
brick by brick.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we're trying to buy a bunch of bricks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
just trying to throw some bricks at windows.
Yeah. So we found this incredible studio last summer, and it like took over my life for a month, just like trying to figure out how to buy it. It was like it was literally $1 million, and just like all these different people just came along because there was already a studio built on the 3rd floor. Looked fucking amazing. And so every so often, we just like talk to so many people who are like thinking like, oh, maybe this would be cool to like partner with you guys and buy it. And it just kept falling through. It's still on the market, but it haunts me. So, but hopefully we'll find something.
I've got some big news, everybody. My vinyl record is out. We didn't make a ton of these, so these guys are going to sell out, and I would love for you to get your hands on one of them because they're so dope. They're so dope. And it comes with a whole bunch of like liner notes and pictures and special stuff, the things that really went into making this record. And I want you to get your hands on it. So go to scoobertdoober.pizza or check out my Instagram for a link, or click the link in the show notes or the bio or wherever you're watching this to pick up your copy. They're going to sell out. We really did not make very many of these, and I want you to have it. It's like a collector's item. So thank you for supporting my music, and I can't wait for you to hear it actually on physical vinyl. Enjoy the rest of the episode. So I want to switch gears a little bit and ask you kind of a technical question a little bit. When you're working on a record, like an album, and you're not mixing the whole thing, you're just doing like a track. How do you approach that? Do you know kind of the context in which you're working, or are you just trying to make that track hit as hard as you possibly can?
That's a good question, because I actually have been doing a little bit more of that. I mean, on some level, I think it's important in record production to like know your role and know where you are.
Yeah.
And so, if they're hiring me to mix this song, it means they want me to do my thing with this song. So I'm going to rip it as best as I can, and I have to trust like the artist who is like the de facto executive producer, or I have to trust the whoever's producing it or whatever to keep those things in mind. And if there's other things I need to listen to, like I will. I did a friend's record, and he had like a different engineer and producer work on every song.
Wow.
and it sounds awesome.
Cool.
And everything sounds a little different, but I think that's what he wanted.
Yeah. Right.
I'm mixing a record right now, and I'm maybe only mixing half of it, but yeah, I don't know. But I think the artist has a really clear idea of what she wants. So I'm just gonna, if she's happy, then probably it's fine. So.
Totally. I'm always just so curious about that. Just because I've done some stuff, but it ends up sounding kind of compilation-y because it's never really known. Like you're doing a single, and then it kind of makes a record, but it's the same thing. It doesn't really get remastered. It's kind of not ideal. But I was just curious.
It's not. I mean, I feel like if you're making an album or like I think it makes sense to have different people produce, but I think it makes sense to have just. I mean, obviously one person master, but hopefully one person mix all of it too. So
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. And I feel like that's also just kind of part of the way that like modern music has evolved, where it's been so like single focused, higher output, all this kind of stuff, and then packaging later. But like doing your best to like make it all work. Just always curious about like those kind of workflows and ways that you're putting yourself in the right headspace.
No, that's a good question. I had to think about it for a second.
Cool. Right on. In terms of working with different partners, I know a lot of people that mix, but a lot of it they'll be mixing their friends, they'll be mixing their own music. What's it like working with label partners, with different labels? How does that kind of change the workflow and change like we were talking about the movies? You're like, is this happening, or do I need to CC this person on the mix? Whose notes do I listen to? Just curious about your experience.
Yeah, the thing is, every label and every manager is different. I try to like take the temperature and just like if someone is sort of feels like they want to micromanage a little bit, I try to make sure I like communicate as much as I can with them while respecting the artist. Like I wouldn't want to send a mix that the artist isn't approving, but I try to keep them in the loop as much as possible. That's really the only thing that's, I think, different. Just because ultimately they're kind of your boss too, so you want to communicate as well as they can. I think that's really all that it changes. The only other thing is like with labels is they always want stems. So you just gotta make sure you include that in your bid. I've learned that the hard way, and they're like, great, and now the stems, and you're like, no, that's like it's like day or two of work I fucking forgot about. So yeah.
No, it's so funny too, because artists, labels, a lot of times It's just a little throw in, like, oh yeah, just hit the stem button.
And yeah, I know. Yeah, someone asked me for stems the other day, and I was like, okay, so I know it sounds like it's easy, but like, there's tons of like parallel processing and two-bus processing and blah, 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 blah. And I know you don't know what any of that means, but just trust me when I say it will take me like 10 to 15 hours to make sure the stems are right. Yeah, they're organized.
Yeah. Yep. Let's talk about parallel processing. For people that don't know what that is, maybe just a quick primer. And then for those that do, what's your approach to it?
I'll rip it. So,
Sweet.
Parallel processing is basically, a lot of people probably do it without realizing it. Like a lot of parallel, like a really basic example of parallel processing is reverb, having a reverb send. You have your dry signal and then you send it to your aux return and that has reverb on it. And so you have you have these two faders and one is wet and one is dry. Well, you can do that with reverb. You can do that with delay, obviously. You can do it with time-based effects, but you can also do it with compression. You can do it with distortion. I don't know if you could do it with EQ. I guess you kind of can. Some people split things up.
Yeah.
You could do it. There's probably a way to do it, but
right.
But basically that same idea. So when it's reverb, people just call it reverb. But whenever it comes, if you're sending stuff to a bus and you're compressing it, distorting it, et cetera, people usually call it parallel processing.
No, and what does that unlock for you when you're mixing? Like instead of trying to dial like one track in to be the blend, you instead kind of have like a more extreme version and a drier version. You're blending them. What does that unlock for you?
You know what? My friends have a joke. My friends and family all have a joke. Sorry, my internet is not always okay. Referring to my approach to things as being like Kyle style, which is just like, turning it up to 10. So, yeah. So if I'm cooking, if it calls for like a few cloves of garlic, I'm doing the whole bulb. You know what I mean? Like if it calls for something, like I'm doing it, like, and that's kind of my approach sometimes to music or mixing, where I'm just like, oh, this thing sounds cool. Rant, just like 10. Anything I pull up, like the first thing I do is just like, what does it sound like all the way up? And so parallel processing is like, once I learned about that, I was like, oh, that approach is actually like usable. Instead of me just like making everything just sound like completely untransient-less, like mushy, bricked, blocked out, whatever. My friend Ryan Schwab, who masters a lot of the stuff, he's also a software developer. He calls it the inner detail, which I think is a really great way to put it. But like if you take a vocal or drums and you send it to something else and you just like absolutely just like clip it or crush it or whatever, when you blend it back in with that dry signal, what you're effectively doing is you're actually kind of turning up like the valleys in addition to the peaks. You're actually like sort of filling in the valleys. You're bringing up the quiet parts. But since there's still that like dry stuff, you're still retaining that transient response. So, I do tons of parallel distortion and tons of parallel compression. I just find that it makes things sound like really full, present, exciting, while also, retaining some of that like just natural detail.
Totally. I love the way that it turns a mix from a bunch of different distinct parts into a song.
Yeah. It's all moving stuff together, But yeah, I do a parallel compression, like on all my electric guitars. I do parallel compression on drums, obviously. I do a lot of different parallel compressions on drums, but anytime you watch those like mixed with the masters, those guys just use tons and tons of parallel compression. Actually, I booked a mix critique session with, are you familiar with Craig Bauer?
Yes. Yep. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I booked a mix critique session with him on Tuesday.
Cool.
So see if he thinks it. see what he thinks about all my parallel stuff. Maybe we'll be like, dude, you gotta chill out.
Yeah, exactly.
Bro, what are you doing?
Yes.
So
100%.
We'll see how that goes.
That's what they'd say to me too, I'm sure.
Yeah, I know. Chill out.
Since you have a mastering engineer that you typically work with and send mixes to, I'm really curious about that relationship. Do you deliver mixes as is? Do you remove limiters? Do you deliver things like with more flexibility on the mastering stage, less flexibility on the mastering stage? Does it go back and forth? What's that look like?
I mostly pull off just the limiter. Like I just throw a limiter on at the end, just like everybody else. So I'll pull that off and send it over to him. My friend Ryan developed this plugin called Gold Clip.
Oh yeah.
So
It's
so
super famous.
So I have So I have Gold Clip. So he developed that because that was like part of his mastering chain. It was like the one piece of hardware that he couldn't replace with a plugin. He was like, bing, I'll fucking make.
There you go.
So
yes.
So I have that always on my bus too. And then like depending on the genre, like he always uses it for mastering. So sometimes if stuff is supposed to be a little gentler, I'll take the Gold Clip off too, because I feel like sometimes when it double dips on the Gold Clip, things just get like really, like maybe just like too modern sounding or too like aggressive. But for the most part, a lot of the stuff I mix is like loud rock or pop stuff, so that's not often. I know a lot of people master themselves, but I just always felt like it's like having an editor or having a spell check or something. Just someone who had a really great listening room, really great ears, and could just like, help me sound a little better than maybe I actually am,
What's good, guys? Scuba Dubert here for the Love Music More podcast, and I want to let you in on a little secret. One of my favorite new things, Minuendo lossless earplugs. So these are really, really, really cool. I've got 2 of them here. It comes in this awesome sweet box, but it comes with a bunch of little goodies like carrying case, tether, cleaning tools. But the real tech is in these little tiny lossless earplugs. My favorite thing about it is, one, you can swap out any of the included tips. So depending on the size of your ear canal, we're all built different. You can get a nice, comfortable fit. But there's also this little lever on these adjustable versions that can go from 7 to 25 decibels of cutting. So depending on if you're listening to nu metal or jazz, you can just hit the little lever and adjust in real time. And I think that's really, really cool. For the longest time, I was listening in those awful foam earplugs, and it makes the music sound like that. It just cuts off all of those high frequencies. And so I was always tempted to sneak them out a little bit. Oh, it's my favorite song, no earplugs. And then you get hearing damage. You have tinnitus after the show, and then you come back, you want to work in the studio, and guess what? Your ears aren't right. And that's why I love Minuendo, because you can just pop these in and have full fidelity with these lossless earplugs. There are 2 different versions. One is adjustable with the little lever, and then this one is fixed at 17 decibels. So check out Minuendo, Minuendo.com, or you can search them on Amazon and find Minuendo earplugs today. Get cracking. Totally.
And I think if you find some specialization within what you do, I think from a business sense, it makes sense to have other people do things, because I send Ryan mastering clients all the time, and because of that, he sends me mixing and production clients, because he doesn't want to do that and I don't want to master. So, people always talk about finding your niche from a genre standpoint, but I think it's also good to find it from a service standpoint or whatever.
It's a really good point. Yeah, there's so many people that want to take it all in-house, and very understandable, but if you have somebody that you trust, like you're saying, that's that final buffer of gut check of like, hey man, I know you had a cold recently. Your ears might be a little plugged up. The highs are all screwed up. Like, go again,
Right.
Take some Sudafed and give it a shot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
'Cause we're all human. Actually, that's a question I wanted to ask. Revisiting mixes, do you have like a process? Say for example, you're doing mix 1. You haven't sent it to the artist yet. You're just kind of like combing through, getting all of the gain staging, everything all set up. Do you take a break and like come back to it, listen to it, and then send it to the artist? How do you structure that transition from like mix in progress to delivered mix? Any steps?
Oh my God. Yeah. It's kind of funny that it took me this long to like come up with this, but I had, just like everybody else, like when you're starting out, like you have this like inherent, maybe not everybody, but have this sort of like insecurity, And when I would always just, when I started mixing, I would always think like, man, those guys in the 70s, they were just like on a console, they would work all day and like, that was it, And like, I really, in the beginning, I was, a Dr. Dog fan. Like an aspiring like analog nerd. I could never go full analog because it never sounded good enough. But
you never go full analog.
But yeah, I'd be like, they didn't have that. They just like fucking sent it. So that's what I'll do. And then stupid. And yeah, after a while, and I used to have clients would always want to attend mixing. So, they would be there and I would be like, checking like the gate or like leveling the compressor, like automating vocals. And they're talking about like baseball or like, I don't know, or like Dinosaur Jr.'s first record or whatever the fuck. And then also I would charge hourly. So I just felt like I gotta fucking move it. I have to respect this band is like just pulled their money together. Like they only have this much of a budget. Like I got to mix 3 songs today. And so I would just like blast through mixes and they always sounded bad. And it would always take like a lot of, going back to it to like get it to sound good until finally I was just like, it coincided with me just going like completely digital too. Cause like for a while I was mixing hybrid because I just felt like the dynamics, like a Waves of 1176 just like did not slap. Like I just needed to I had like a couple compressors. I used to mix hybrid with HD system and I always had my bass going through a BAE 1066D just because I felt like that transformer just like imparted something to the bass that like I just couldn't replace with the plugins I had. And I always had like a couple distressors going for like parallels on drums. And again, like I just couldn't find a compressor, a plugin that was like good enough at doing that until Joe bought some UAD stuff. And I feel like the UAD stuff, they like, for whatever reason, they finally like cracked the code and they were able to get the dynamics to actually be like sound pretty good. Yep. And so once I was able to just go like entirely in the box, I was like, okay, no more bands attending mixes, no more sending bands mixes like at the end of the day when you're like in love with yourself, Your
ears are all cooked.
Ears are all cooked and you're like, I'm a fucking genius. Like, then like, here you go. So yeah, I was like, this is like, why am I comparing myself to dudes in the 70s? They probably would have killed to have this technology.
Yeah, right.
And so I really just like kind of pick away at mixes. I'll pull it up. I'll mix it. I'll like walk into the common room. I'll talk to the whatever band is tracking in the main room or shoot the shit with whoever's here. Or just, I try to take breaks and even if I finish a song, like I will try to wait at least like a day or two before I send it to the artist. You always catch stuff. I try to listen to stuff at home in the stereo, but I'll try to listen on my phone. But mostly it's just like, you just need some perspective. Like, yes. And you send that first mix and then you listen to it the next day, you're like, wow, the snare is really loud. And then you've just blown your credibility.
Right.
They're like, right. Why did you send me this? The snare is crazy loud. Didn't you notice that? And you're like, oh, yeah, ear fatigue, Yes, so exactly. It just, it sounds so stupid. But Joe and I always joke that on our tombstones, it'll say, he learned the hard way, because that's pretty much like seemingly the only way I learn is doing it wrong the first time. But
sorry to interrupt this very important broadcast, but it's time for one more advertisement for myself for this podcast. What I'm asking for is for you to rate it 5 stars, share it with your friends. This is like the most important thing for this podcast to grow. So if you want to do this, you go onto the podcast screen, right? You click on the ... on Spotify. Under there, it says rate show, and you go and you click it 5 stars. If you could do that for me, that's the best way for the algorithms and all this stuff to share it out with the world. I know that it's a lot to ask, but if you could please just hit those 3 dots and then a 5 star, it would really help us out and helps us, get the word out and spread the love of music. So thank you. If you're listening on YouTube, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you so much. And here's the rest of the episode.
So yeah, last 7, 8 years, that's kind of been the way I've been doing it. And it's gone a lot better. And then you spend some time, you really listen to a bunch of places, you take some space away from it, you come back to it a day or two later. And now I send mixes to people and I get like, just these amazing compliments, like people like being brought to tears that just like makes you feel so great. So
I agree. No, it's so much better when you bake it a little bit more, even though it puts yourself out there a little bit. You're like, if you send it halfway, then the artist can be like, oh no, we're gonna steer it out over this other direction. But when you fully bake it, you're like, hey, this is where I think this song should go. This is what's moving me. And then the other thing that always gets me is mixing is such a process of zooming in, zooming out, zooming in, zooming out. I try not to solo things too often, but just that process of like fine detail, broad perspective, that that boggles my brain. I only have so much in the tank to do that kind of work. I do a whole bunch of other work like tracking or whatever, like go late into the night, linear problem solving, whatever. But the in out, my I only have so much that I can pull off in a day.
Yeah, I have this like sort of duality where I can sit there and do that like detailed work for a while and it doesn't bother me. Yeah. But if I'm like vibing, I don't want to go through and like check all the triggers of the sampler. Yes. I don't want to go through and check all the gates. I don't want to like organize the folders. I don't want to. So what I learned to do is just like have a separate time where I'm like, I'm going to put it in the template.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through and auto align everything. I'm going to organize it in the folder. I'm going to like have a very organized template and just have it so that and just like get it set up so that once I'm ready to go, like I'm moving a little bit, because I realized that too, where I would work so quickly and turn everything up to 10 because I was just like so impatient to like hear the song all together. But
right.
So kind of separating those.
Smart.
Like,
yes.
That process. Like I have like an older laptop that can do like some of that stuff. And so I'll do it like when I'm on the plane or just like, at home. Like then my next purchase is to get a more tricked out laptop that I can do like kind of everything on. That way I can come to LA or I can go to New York or I can, go to a cabin in the woods and still just like work on shit. So that's the dream.
That is the dream. And I totally agree. Yeah. Creating that little bit of assembly line work in your head can free up all of that room. It's hard though, like when working with bands, all different kind of tiers, and some people have got really good producers. Some people just went to like the local studio and they didn't time correct anything and they want it to sound like a modern pop song. It's like, well, the drummer's all over the place. It's like, here's hours of me going, all right, let's find everything. Yeah.
I actually did a record where I had the opposite, where this band had recorded with a producer somewhere in the Midwest. They were like a Chicago-ish area band, like, pop punk, emo sort of thing. And they're just like, there's just something that doesn't feel right about this mix. Like it just feels, we don't have the words for it, but it's just like, like our drummer keeps complaining about it. I don't know what he does to the drums after we record it, but it just doesn't like sound like us. And I was like, I have some ideas. And so I ended up getting the sessions and the dude had just like taken every single drum hit, just put it right on the grid.
Yes.
And then just got what was the drummer from Foo Fighters? Taylor Hawkins, right?
Yeah.
Just like loaded up some Taylor Hawkins like sample packs or something.
Oh, nice.
And it just like, and it was just like cymbals and just like smashed like samples. And I was like, no wonder you guys aren't happy. This literally isn't you.
Yeah.
So I went through and just like, the drums did need some editing, but I feel like the whole point of editing, or I worked, I studied under a producer, interned, apprentice with a producer, and he said the whole point of editing drums or tuning vocals is to make it sound like you didn't do that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh yeah, of course. Like any idiot can slam it to the grid. Any idiot can just go and put it like right on the piano roll, really listening to it and being like, okay, how can I make this sound like intentional but human?
Exactly. That's why this band, they didn't understand how long I spent on it. They thought I just like put it in the computer and clicked quantize. It's like, no. It's like this is a 5.5 minute long song, and everything was just especially because the entire band recorded live to that drum part. I was cool with just like leaving it. I was like, this is cool. And they're like, no, we really wanted to like sound modern and locked. I'm like, whoo boy.
Well, like you guys did the opposite.
They didn't know. They didn't know. They're new. Of course. They're young. That's what I'm here for, to like help them out. And then next time they got some advice. So next time
exactly.
Chart the course.
And the learning curve in the studio, like you forget. You forget about that.
100%.
I just remember being in high school and my punk band talking to the, recording in the local studio and being like, I heard the Misfits recorded live. Is that a thing we could do? And the guy's like, yeah, totally. And I was like, cool. I guess that's what we'll do if the Misfits did it.
Yeah.
Because those records sound great.
Yeah.
Because those are tight fucking exemplary performances. So you know that what my frame of reference was. Those records are so sloppy. But they sound great.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, moment in time, man. Moment in time.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost torturing myself, but like I listen to there's this other podcast called like Life of the Record. And so every so often they'll do some records that I'm like, oh shit, like, I would like to know how that was made. So one of the bands, one of the records was like Foolish by Superchunk. And that was made in like 94. And then the other one was American Football, which was made in like 99. And so, that's still like digital, but most studios did not have digital. Or if they did have digital, it was DAT tape, which is like the worst of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, but,
Brittle.
you listen to those records and you're like, holy shit, that is just the drummer.
Cool. Yeah, right.
They just practiced a lot.
Yes. Exactly.
Crazy. But when you listen to it, you're like, damn.
Yeah.
Those like 22-year-old kids fucking ripped.
Yep.
You know?
Well, the thing this is what I ended up communicating to this band was, I spent 6 hours or something doing this. Could you have spent 6 hours recording a bunch of takes of the drums? Because I bet you I could comp, because you're a good drummer. If you could play this thing 20 times, I bet you I could comp something that sounds even better than what I did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean,
it's part of the process.
And I've started actually making like a little TikTok series on our social media, just like talking about pre-production, because for bands that are starting out, there's just so many, there's just a record is the sum total of like a million little decisions, you know what I mean? And so not all of them apply, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't, and blah blah blah. But yeah, that's why we do it, because it's just like fun to keep figuring it out. But you kind of forget that, like, oh yeah, we're recording all the time, and some people do it like once a year. So
some bands, it's like, this is like my third song I've ever recorded. It's like, okay, great,
totally,
that puts me in a different place. Like, let's do this together. Yeah,
but I love having. I feel like we get a lot of bands. It's like a decent amount of like their first record ever kinds of bands.
Good.
I take pride, and I don't take it for granted that I get to be I try to treat that with respect. Like I try to make sure people have like a good first experience, because some people have. Because sometimes I'm their second or third, and sometimes people have some bad experiences, and I'm like, oh, that's such a bummer. One time this band told me about how a producer they worked with like took someone's part and converted it to MIDI and turned it into like MIDI clarinet. And he was like, check this out. And they're like, what are you?
Oh my God.
What are you?
Amazing.
I'm just like, that's insane.
Yes.
That's an insane thing to do.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure there's a world in which like, yo, that's a cool guitar part. I'm going to turn it to MIDI clarinet. We're going to like throw it through this like crazy distortion pedal or whatever. Like I could totally see a world in which like
there's gotta be a few more.
yeah. I could totally see a world in which like that is fucking sick, but yeah, not in this instance. So
let alone MIDI clarinet. That is a particular cringe.
Oh God, yeah.
I can picture it now. I can see. I can visualize a signal effects chain at which at the end the MIDI clarinet is at least funny.
Right. Yeah. Well, sometimes
funny.
Sometimes when things sound bad, that's what makes them cool.
Oh, totally. Like I like Caro Caro Bonito, and they're like a lot of what they do is this incredible precipice walk of, is this a joke or is this one of the coolest things I've ever heard?
Right. Yeah.
They have a very bizarre fan base because of this.
Right. A
cool
strange
career.
cross section of a.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I don't want to take too much of your time. So I'm going to hit you with the question that I always close with, and take as much on this one as you want, because it's a simple question, but also a difficult one.
All right. I'll try to make it. I feel like you've probably only asked me like 3 questions. I've had some really long answers, so
it's good. It makes my job easy.
Okay, well that's good. As long as it's not making it harder. So.
No. So this show is called Love Music More. This segment is called Love Music. Why? Why do you love music?
Wow. Damn. That should not be this hard to answer. I really think music is like, it's kind of like magic, you know? Like, it's really crazy that air can vibrate and it makes everybody feel a certain way. It's crazy that you can vibrate air and make people feel better. Music has the ability to heal people, heal their trauma. It can make people feel less alone. So it has this like quality that a lot of other mediums maybe don't have. It brings people together. And, you know, I love listening to music, and there's certain songs that bring me right back to like a certain place. You know, if I listen to Rancid, I immediately think of like drinking Coca-Cola and like skateboarding. If I listen to like the Dirty Projectors or Grizzly Bear, I think about like sleeping on a fucked up mattress like on the floor of the warehouse. If I listen to Orion Sun, like I immediately think of lockdown and the pandemic and just like, you know, spending Friday nights with my wife listening to R&B. So I think it's like amazing that it like short circuits this place in your brain. And the other thing I love about music, particularly recording music and working in music, you know, it's this common denominator that it just allows people to talk and converse. Like, I'm 40 years old and there's like really not a lot I have to say to like a 22-year-old that they're interested in hearing probably. But because because of music, like I'm able to connect with people, you know, who are different ages than me, different backgrounds, you know, and that's what's kind of cool about doing stuff with like the guy who's helping us with the loan for trying to buy this building is the bass player of this band we've recorded like 6 times. You know what I mean? Our real estate agent is this dude who I think Joe has recorded 2 or 3 times, is like an old friend. Music is this beautiful cross-section of life, and, you know, and it just like allows me this sort of like connection with all different kinds of people.
That's beautiful.
So music rocks.
Music does.
Music rocks. And we're talking because of music. So that's sick.
It is
and
sick.
you live in LA? Is that?
I live in San Diego.
Oh, you're in San Diego.
I moved back. I was in LA, and then kind of around the pandemic moved back to San Diego and love it here. Making it work. Yeah. It probably would be easier if I was in LA, but it's not that far.
Right. You know? I mean, it would be, and it would be, and it wouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So,
I mean, yeah, it's like Philly's. It's the same deal. It's like Philly's 2 hours from New York. There's not a lot of people who like sing the praises of. I mean, some people really do love LA, and some people really do love New York. But sometimes I feel like it's a little bit of like a badge of honor, like, you know, like I did it.
Yeah. No, and like, to be fair, they did, like, entertainment capitals. That's super impressive. But yeah, there's something to the 2 hour away city, especially for things like deep work or finding something that's more like personal on your own. Like I've always thought that if I lived in New York City, I'd be a completely different person just because of the energy and the temptation all around me to always be out, always be doing, where most of my best stuff is alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, New York in particular, like I had this like lukewarm take recently because my wife does podcasting, and so she got asked to speak somewhere, and they put her up in a nice hotel, and so I got to go and also be in this like nice hotel, Tribeca. And I was just like, yo, New York is awesome.
Yeah.
Except that you need to be like a millionaire in order to like live like even with the most like basic human decent like comfort. You know, like obviously it's awesome, but it's just like, yeah, you have to live in a fucking, I mean, and people, I couldn't imagine like having to like have my studio in like a New York bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be fucking, but people do it.
People totally do. They do it really well. And I think it's personality dependent, but I just know the person that I would be would not be nearly as productive. I'd be more fun. I might be more interesting.
I think my one weakness is that I really am bad at doing stuff I don't want to do. Like I'm bad at like sucking it up, and I just, in some ways I like would have rather recorded like the fucking punk band than try to record some, I don't know, anything else. I think now that I'm like older and more mature, I'm just like, there's somebody I went to school with who's like Taylor Swift's like engineer or whatever. And I'm just like, damn, that is actually kind of cool. But also, I don't know that if I would have been able to like do the stuff that would have like gotten me to that point. Like if I got to skip the steps, like maybe that would be cool. But like,
No, it's a great point. It's a great point about paths and cities, and that all ties in.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, thank you so much for the great wisdom. I loved chatting, loved hearing more about your story, and
dude.
Absolute pleasure.
It was great to meet you. Thanks for hitting me up, and I'll let you know next time I'm on the West Coast.
Yes, please.
Maybe we can rip a burrito or a tune or whatever. Do you ever tour?
I do sometimes. Yeah. They're usually more like little mini tours, like little kind of spot date things. I did a little mini Japan tour in October.
Hell yeah.
That was sick. That was a total dream come true. But yeah.
Definitely. That is the dream.
It was so sick. I really want to do it again. It was amazing.
Yeah. That's amazing. Do you ever make it out to the West or East Coast?
I've played New York a few times, but as this project, that's the only East Coast dates I've done. But I want to. I'll definitely let you know if like plans start bubbling or something like that. I'd love to talk.
Hit me up.
And where can people find more about you? Listen to some of the art that you've worked on.
I'm on Instagram and TikTok. Headroom Philadelphia. You can find my website kylepulley.net, headroom.studio. And or just send me a message and I'll send you something.
Sweet. Well, Kyle, I hope you have a great one, and I can't wait for everybody to listen to this great conversation.
Oh, hell yeah. Same to you, Scoober.
All right. Until next time.
Later, buddy.